fun part about this work is when you look at what we accept as typical aging, that doesn't have to be the direction that we go if we really understand how to take care of this container in this different way. If you think of what creates pain, aging, dis-ease, and ultimately death, it's compression over time. So the work that we teach is how to decompress the body, putting the space back into the body that time has taken away so that we can resume flow, resume function.
Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany, the podcast where science meets wisdom. I'm Brittany Ford, holistic nutritionist, biohacker, and mom. And for years, I struggled with gut issues, hormonal imbalances, and the exhaustion of motherhood while running a business. Biohacking and functional medicine became my way back to clarity, vitality, and trust in my body. And that's why I'm here, not just to share information, but to share the practices and perspectives that truly shifted my health and my life. Each week, I bring you science-backed tools, honest conversations, and rituals I live myself so you can return to your own body's wisdom and create longevity on your own terms. Because your body already knows this is just the space to remember. Well, welcome back to Biohacking with Brittany. I am so excited that you are listening today. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, welcome. I am so excited to have so many more people watching these videos these days, which is really cool. And this podcast episode is all about the fascia. This is not something I've actually talked a lot about on my podcast, and it's something I am seeing a lot on social media and kind of like rise in popularity. And I got to sit down with Deanna Hansen, who is a fascia decompression expert, best-selling author, and founder of block therapy, a self-healing method that helps people release chronic pain, unlock trauma, and reverse signs of aging, all through the power of breath, alignment, and fascia release. So this episode, we really actually got to sit down and talk about how the fascia works, why it's linked to longevity and aging, chronic pain, and even like women's health issues. So we talked a lot about like C-section scar healing as well. I love this episode. This is one of those ones where I actually learned a lot, and I love these ones because there's always more to learn about health and wellness. And I'm actually going to get the blocks. So she talks about block therapy, these like wooden blocks that she has. I'm actually going to get some of those because they are so cool. And I think it's something that could be really beneficial for my own healing and for my own C-section scar healing. I had a C-section about 16 months ago, and that is something that I'm continually thinking about and working on and wondering how I can kind of like release the tension that is still stuck there. So stay tuned for that. If you want to try any of the blocks or her free courses or programs, I will link everything in the show notes for you. It's on my website. You can find it really easily. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, just go to the show notes and click the links. I think I'm also going to have a discount code or a link for you to save. So check that out. All the details will be below. And make sure you like, subscribe, do all those wonderful things that we love to do when we support shows that we like. And last but not least, a shout out to my retreat, which is coming in March. I almost forgot for a second. I am going to Costa Rica, and I have a bunch of women joining me. And we are going to be focusing on health optimization for women and really looking at longevity and peeling back the layers of like, how do we live more in alignment with ourselves so that we can be healthier? This idea of intuitive longevity, which I'm going to be talking about more and more and more. So stay tuned for that. There's still a couple of spots left for my retreat if you want to join. You can do a single room or double occupancy, but regardless, I would love to see you there, hug you in person. And I know it's going to be, it's honestly attracting like the best of the best women. So I'm just so excited for that. Enjoy this podcast episode. Stay tuned. And a shout out for Bioptimizers. They have some incredible products. I usually have them around my desk, but I don't know where they are right now. I am in love with their digestive enzymes, their probiotics, and their magnesium. These are kind of the three that I go between. When we're traveling, which we're leaving for in 3 weeks, we're traveling for 4 months with my family. I will definitely be bringing some of these products with me because I just think they are best of the best. my favorite digestive enzymes. Anytime you eat something like heavy or with gluten or processed food or dairy or soy, like things that I typically try not to eat, I always feel a million times better when I take the enzymes with because they help break down the food faster. So it reduces like digestive discomfort, bloating, anything kind of like gut health, even related as well. Check Bioptimizers out. Right now, they actually have their Black Friday sale on. So it's 25% off of everything, which is insane. And you get a free gift. It could not be a better time to actually order from them because, like, everything is on sale. So definitely check that out. Enjoy this episode, and I will catch you soon for another one. Anna, welcome to the show. I am so excited that you're joining me, a fellow Canadian out in Winnipeg. And I'm just excited to kind of dive into fascia. I feel like to be honest, I feel like I actually don't fully understand what it is and why it's so important, even though I'm in the health and wellness space. And I'm so curious why you got into this space initially.
First of all, thank you so much, Brittany, for having me here. I absolutely love the work that you're doing, the information you're bringing to the masses. It's so critical and important, and I'm very honored to be on your show right now. So, yeah, I dive into the world of fascia. I've been doing this for 26 years, and I've really learned that the fascia is really the centerpiece of all things health and longevity. So, to understand this system, this is the continuous web that interconnects every single cell in the body. It's the communication system between all cells. And there's basically two proteins primarily that make up the fascia, collagen and elastin. When these proteins are in balance, it creates both structure for the body as well as mobility. And the reason that's important is because if these are in balance, then all of the cells are in their optimal space, which means that there's space in and around the cell for ease of absorption of nutrients into the cell, as well as the removal of toxins and debris away from the cell. Ease of flow is really the goal as we go through time and we accumulate age in our body. So the reality is, though, that we aren't positioned properly. We haven't been given the proper instructions on how to drive our body. So basically, gravity is constantly pulling us down toward the earth. We're dominant on one side. We have an accumulation of traumas, injuries, maybe even surgeries that have added up in our body, creating scar tissue and densities. Also, what do we do all day long? Are we in front of a computer slumped? Are we a laborer? Are we playing a sport or playing an instrument that puts us into these specific alignments for many hours a day? These things matter in how we age and how the flow works in the body. So imagine walking a 120-pound dog. If this dog is tugging on you because it's not trained properly, in order to not fall flat on your face, the opposite side of the body goes into a contraction. So it creates a dynamic in the body that pulls us from alignment. And it's actually the collagen component, that structural protein, that ends up migrating to areas of need so that I don't tip over, creating false walls and false floors, kind of like scaffolding on a building. So it's doing this to protect us. But if we don't release that patterning in the moment when it occurs, then we end up aging from that perspective. Ultimately, that's what aging is. We become shorter and wider over time, and our body becomes stagnant. The cells aren't being properly fed and cleaned, and then we end up with issues, whether it's pain, trouble managing size and shape, whether it's feelings of anxiety, depression. It really all comes down to the fascia system and how we approach this body. So that's why I love talking about the fascia and sharing with people how to support the body properly, because of course there's other aspects to what creates health or not. But if we forget the actual physical container that we're living in, then a lot of the stuff that we're doing for our health, those nutrients, those frequencies aren't getting to the areas of need because the adhesions, which basically act like scar tissue, they're not allowing those transmissions or those nutrients to get to the area of concern.
Oh, that's so interesting. And I'm so curious now, like as I sit here and I like feel my body while you're describing it, I'm thinking like for the average person listening to this podcast, how would they know if there is that imbalance in cells that you're talking about in their fascia? Like in this moment right now, I'm like, okay, I definitely have some pain in my shoulders. My rhomboid feels tight. And we know like that's a lot of the hunching. I'm still breastfeeding my baby. So there's like a lot of that still going on. So the question is like, how do I know when my fascia is imbalanced? And then what do I do?
So essentially, every body isn't perfectly balanced. I don't feel that any body in this world will ever be in perfection. The goal is to move in that direction as opposed to moving in the opposite direction, which is driven by gravity. So if you're experiencing pain, if you're seeing signs of aging, if you're holding and storing trauma, if your nervous system isn't regulated properly, if you're struggling to manage size and shape, like basically anything and everything that doesn't feel optimal is partly responsible because of these adhesions in the body and tissue which block flow. So it's absolutely everything. And we all experience it. And the fun part about this work is when you look at what we accept as typical aging, that doesn't have to be the direction that we go if we really understand how to take care of this container in this different way. If you think of what creates pain, aging, dis-ease, and ultimately death, it's compression over time. So the work that we teach is how to decompress the body, putting the space back into the body that time has taken away so that we can resume flow, resume function. And when that happens, I mean, it's pretty remarkable, the things that we're seeing with people.
Love that so much. I am such a believer in that. And people sometimes laugh when I say this, especially if they're older than me. But I again try to say this to even to my parents of like, you can't just use aging as an excuse to like why you might be feeling some way or why you might be dealing with some sort of issue or health issue that's going on there. Like your decisions over time had a massive role in that occurring. And that's why now you're seeing those issues in your 60s, 70s, whatever it might be. And so I really do love when you're saying like, we don't have to age a certain way. Like we actually can do something right now to like mitigate those effects long term.
And, so much of it also isn't the habits we have. I mean, of course, they're huge. I mean, if you're smoking and drinking and eating unhealthy foods and doing all the negative things, of course, it's obvious why you're aging in a certain way, but it's those traumas that could happen when we were 3 years old or when we're 10 years old. And because ultimately it's really about the breath. And when our fascia is properly aligned, this beautiful plate of muscle, the diaphragm, when we inhale, the diaphragm moves down. When we exhale, it lifts. When we have the space in the body to allow this muscle to function optimally, it changes our entire physiology. So think of gravity as being this constant downward pull. Full exhalation is the counterforce to gravity. I mean, that's just something to understand and appreciate. And the reality is pain, fear, and stress cause us to reactively hold the breath. If a deer survives an attack, they shake. They release that negative energy in the moment so that it doesn't get stored in their body. But we as humans, we go into collapse mode and then we don't release it. And then we age from that perspective. When we are breathing properly, we feed the body up to 600% more oxygen, 6 times the oxygen. So plate is working properly. It's at the base of the lungs where the majority of the oxygen receptor sites reside. So breathing diaphragmatically means we're pulling the air deeply into the lungs to access. They're called alveoli. If we're breathing through the muscles of the upper chest, which most people do, it's a secondary response to stress. But this is what's happening to most people, and it becomes the chronic way we breathe. We're not bringing that air deeply enough. So now we're feeding maybe 10, 20% of our cells with oxygen. Whatever the number is, it's not optimal. They've even proven 84% of weight loss comes through proper exhalation. And I was in my 20s working out like a fiend. I was in athletic therapy in university. I was running, Tai Bo, aerobics, weights, you name it. The harder I was working, the bigger I was getting. I was 50 pounds overweight, struggling with anxiety, depression, chronic pain, doing the work, starving myself, which now I understand was like completely not the way to go. But either way, I was like, why are the rules of weight loss not applying to me? And it was because I recognized I wasn't breathing. I yoga at the same time. And I had this lovely instructor that every 30, 45 seconds in a posture, she would be reminding us to breathe. And I'm like, wow, every time you say that, I recognize I'm holding my breath to some degree. So even though I was literally starving myself and working out as much as I could, I had no energy in my body to actually send the toxins out of my body and then create the space to optimize cellular function. And it was when I was in my is when this all came to be through an anxiety attack. I was struggling so much just with how my life was. And I made some big changes at the age of 30. And this one anxiety attack in particular was the seed for me to really understand this. In the moment, I thought I was going to die because I was just traumatized and I couldn't catch my breath. So for some reason, I intuitively dove my hand into my belly. And the first thing I encountered was pain, but the pain took me out of my crazy thinking. But then as I started moving my hands around the tissue, it felt marbled with what was scar tissue, even though I hadn't had any injury or surgery in that space. And as an athletic therapist and by my profession, I focused on deep tissue work. So I was very aware of what scar tissue felt like. And now I'm feeling it riddled throughout this space. And I suddenly had these aha moments, like, no wonder when I'm coming home from a 5-mile run and I'm dripping wet with sweat, my belly would still feel cold. There was no energy getting to this tissue to metabolize it. After 2 days of just intuitively working with my hands in this space, when I stood up that second night, I felt taller and I went and I looked at myself in the mirror and my belly was flatter than it had looked in years. I was doing 400 sit-ups a day. I was doing stair climber. I was doing anything and everything I could to create the body that I wanted. And the harder I worked, the more compressed, ballooned, and congested I became. And I just was toxic. So it was really this deep understanding of how to mobilize these areas that are cold. And through the journey of my life and working on myself, patients, and then creating block therapy as a self-care practice, I really started to understand what we need to do to our fascia to support proper diaphragmatic breathing, because it's really the key. It even changes your brain frequency when you're breathing through the diaphragm compared to the muscles of the upper chest. We're in parasympathetic when we can access where we need to be for healing, for rest, for digest. And so many people are living 24/7 in sympathetic. Their adrenals are exhausted. They're just overloaded with stress and anxiety that their body never gets to that moment where regeneration is possible. So we really need to slow things down instead of like I was working so hard, like force. We need to persuade the body with kindness and care and intention in order to really restore the balance that we've basically lost over generations.
This episode is brought to you by Optimize Her, my women's biohacking retreat in Costa Rica, happening March 2nd to 7th, 2026. I am so excited, guys. This isn't just another yoga retreat. It's a 5-night, 6-day, science-backed health optimization woven into feminine restoration, designed specifically for women's bodies. We'll dive into functional medicine and longevity tools, experience healing sessions like sound baths and cacao ceremonies, and recalibrate with daily movement, spa rituals, and farm-to-table meals that support hormones, gut health, and vitality. It's not about fixing. It's about clearing the noise so you can actually tune into your body again. If you're ready for deep restoration and transformation, you can explore all the details in the show notes, and I would absolutely love to see you in Costa Rica. Wow. Yeah, I relate to so much of what you said. I definitely see the animals shaking. I actually see my dog do that. So like if we I don't know, if there's like a heightened situation, whatever it might be, like he just like shakes it off, like physically. And I've thought about that so many times of like, okay, I need to do that. Like I need to shake off whatever stress or whatever I'm feeling, which is why like exercise and movement or Kundalini yoga can like really help with that type of thing. But in terms of breath work, what's so interesting is like very similar was like a shallow breather until I got pregnant and went to a physiotherapist and a pelvic floor physiotherapist. And she's like, let me teach you how to breathe into your pelvic floor so that you can have a better birth and all of the benefits. And that is when I realized, oh my gosh, I need to be breathing way deeper and like calmer and longer than I ever have before. And what I was doing up until I got pregnant was, and I think so many women do this, is like I would suck my stomach in all day, every day. Right? So like, because, you want to be small as a woman, small is valuable in society, right? And so that's what we're taught. And so you're like always sucking it in and then you get pregnant and you just can't anymore. Like you just physically, and then now post-pregnancy, 15 months later, I don't do that anymore. I might not have the core strength, maybe that's why, but definitely feels like more of a relaxed area. And I think that probably helps me today, I'm assuming, to like continue to breathe deeper versus being a chest breather.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that will serve you for a very short period of time. I was the same as a Highland dancer. Of course, hold your belly in so that it looks flat. But the thing is, this muscle, the diaphragm, this is the foundation for everything, the rib cage and everything above. So if we're working it and it's strong, it supports this. If we are breathing up through here and this muscle isn't considered, it becomes weak. And then what happens over time is start crashing down into the core space and the belly balloons because it has to go somewhere. And then not only that, now we aren't giving all of the internal organs this additional energy, this continual massage. We end up displacing the organs because we don't just fall linearly, we twist down. So everything gets pushed and under stress and tension. So we don't absorb nutrients, we don't eliminate efficiently. Oftentimes the liver will get cold and then the fats in the liver become solid and block the liver's ability to function. And then we don't eliminate fully. So this engine, you can even think of it as the body's furnace. This is what keeps us heated and warm. Breathing up through here is like a space heater. And I mean, we live in Canada. If I'm in my building and my window breaks and it's minus 35 outside, I can have all the best things in here. But if I can't close that window and heat myself, I will die. So the membranes of the cells, this is so important to be considered because this is what allows for space, for ease of flow. As soon as we have compression and ballooning, now we don't have that ease of flow. So now cells are hungry and starving. They become dirty, exhausted. And think of a balloon fully blown up. It glows, it's round, it almost defies gravity. Take half the air out of the balloon, it becomes wrinkled. We end up accumulating dirt and debris in the creases and it becomes heavy. So over time, that's what happens to cells. And you can see it on people, especially faces or, where there's a hanging skin or there's, trapped discoloration. This is all because those cells don't have that opportunity for optimal flow. So this is why the breath is so key because this is what is delivering the nutrients and also removing the toxins from the body, as well as other things, of course. There's other channels, the way we sweat, obviously, the other ways of letting go of waste, but the breath is key and it's constant. So with that exhale, that full exhale every single time, that's a game changer in our entire physiology and how we keep our body healthy.
I love that. I'm so curious if you've ever done any work with women who have had C-sections. And I have a lot of moms in my community, and I had a C-section. I found out my baby was breech at like 38 weeks, and it kind of all went downhill. But anyway, we're fine. We're good. We're healthy. Post-birth, like I've done a lot of red light therapy, did a lot of, again, pelvic floor physiotherapy, worked to like massage the skin and all the different directions. And the scar itself is like doing really well. It's flattened. It's gotten smaller. I will say though, like when I'm working out and stretching, I do feel more, what would the word be? Tension in my abdomen still. And I wonder what I can do and how that might relate to the fascia like 15 months postpartum. Like, is it too late?
No, it's never too late. And that's the lovely thing. So it's about magnetics. So you've had a cut, a slice in your body. And then what happens is all of the areas surrounding it, the collagen from those cells is going to dump into the space to create the scar. So it basically knits together. But it's a magnetic seal. Think of magnets far enough apart, there's no attraction. Bring them close together and they seal with the force. So here's your scar. Now you're trying to pull it apart and get life in there. Pretty much impossible, but we can shear it apart. So when we're doing our practice, that's what we do. We understand how the collagen knits together and what's required to move through the layers. And it's through shearing and pressure over time. Pressure over time in the area creates heat. When you combine external pressure for a period of time, not rubbing, holding, when you combine that with turning on your diaphragm, that's your body's furnace. You're heating on the inside and you're heating on the outside. And then as you're in positions, and I'll show you the tools and I'll explain it further, but when you're in positions, we teach you how to shear so you can start moving those layers apart, pumping life and blood into those spaces. So there's two parts to our system. There's creating space, which we do through the process of lying in an area, inflating that space through the process of instructing proper diaphragmatic breathing, which is now sending blood and oxygen into these newly created spaces so those cells can absorb that oxygen, become lighter and lift. And then the third pillar is maintaining that space, understanding proper postural foundations so we don't fall back into those negative patterns that created the issue in the first place. And I realized that, you had a C-section, but that still applies here because we also adapt to different postures based on what's happened to the body. So we want to bring those cells back to their home We want everything to have as much space as possible so there's optimal flow. So we definitely have so many women in our community that have reported such incredible results with C-sections and scars everywhere and anywhere on their body, bringing life back into them so you can integrate those muscles as well that have been impacted. Because that's a common thing. Like, I mean, you've sliced through this muscle, so now you don't have that connection. So all the working out in the world isn't going to bring that back. Just like my belly when I was running or whatever it was, and I was doing all of this working out, but yet there was no life in that space because of those adhesions. So adhesions and scar tissue are essentially the same thing. They're just created in different ways. Scar tissue from injury or surgery from a moment in time. Adhesions are a slow forming scar riddled throughout the entire body as the collagen slowly migrates to areas of need so that we, over time, don't fall on our face, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, that's so interesting. And I'm glad that this is something that I can continue to work on because like I said, like I'd love to get a point where any ab exercise I do, like it's working out the abs versus like, ooh, I'm feeling this pull all the way down into my belly or down into my scar. So just going with the scar as the example, when you're talking about like pressing down and creating heat. So is this something that I would add as a daily practice to like my morning routine and I like press certain ways? Like practically, like how do I actually do this?
May I show you the tools that we use for block
Yeah.
therapy? Okay.
Yeah.
So these are the tools. Now, these are made from Winnipeg elm. Winnipeg elm trees have been riddled with Dutch elm disease, and they're cutting down these beautiful 100-year-old massive trees, but the disease is in the bark. So these trees are already being cut down. The wood is perfectly fine. So this is the wood that we use. So we're not cutting any trees down. The reason that wood is so important is because the fascia, those adhesions, will grip to anything in its pathway, including bone, to create that stability. That's the tension that you're feeling with a 1,000-pound per square inch seal. Think about that internal prep. So when you're stretching or when you're doing that work and you're feeling that pull, that's the force that you're feeling inside yourself. But that's that magnetic seal. So what we do with our tools is, again, and we use these head to toe, every area of the body, but we always start right on the abdomen, right on the belly button to get the breath going. So we teach you first how to get the breath strong. We also, in our first class that we always teach, is working through the rib cage because those adhesions also lock your rib cage out of alignment, impacting your ability to access your diaphragm. So we want to release that holding pattern so we can breathe more fully and completely. That in itself starts oxygenating your body more. You become lighter. We have more energy, and then we can keep moving deeper, deeper, deeper. So that's what we do. So if you have a scar, a C-section scar, you're basically lying on this tool for a minimum of 3 minutes because it's all about melting. This area is basically frozen now. So we want to heat it, and we can't rush heating. We need to take our time. So again, the diaphragm is the body's furnace. When you start working that with the positions, it's incredibly efficient at melting through scar tissue. So we have two different sizes, the block buddy and the block baby. We always say if you're over 5 feet, get the block buddy, under 5 feet, the baby. Most people in my community want both because we also have double blocking classes. And it's nice to have the option, especially say in the sideways position, which is like my favorite position. So many people are so closed through here that there's not a lot of space in through here. So to be able to use different size tools is optimal. And we teach you that your breath is your guide. As you're in position, so many people think, oh, it must be so painful lying on this hard tool. It's actually lovely because bone and wood are friends. They're similar in frequency. So when you're lying on the tool, and of course you're the one lying on it, so you have all the control, your breath is your guide. As long as you're breathing in a relaxed way, that's your body feeding and healing. If your breath is stressed because it's too painful, that's your body saying, this is too much, we need to back off. And we can do it on the floor, we can do it on a bed. We also have chair classes for people. So there's so many ways to adapt depending on what your needs are.
If you're a woman juggling work, motherhood, and trying to stay healthy, you know how easy it is to feel burnt out. The fatigue, the bloating, the restless nights, the hormonal ups and downs that make everything harder. And that's exactly why I love Bioptimizers, supplements that actually work with your biology. Their magnesium breakthrough is one of my daily must-haves. It combines all 7 forms of magnesium to calm your nervous system, support hormonal balance, improve sleep, and help you finally feel grounded again. Doesn't that sound nice? And if you're tired of feeling puffy or bloated after meals, Their mass enzymes and P3OM probiotics are game changers. They help you digest food properly, reduce inflammation, and keep your gut and mood balanced. Every formula is science backed, third party tested, and designed for real results, not just quick fixes. You can try them at bioptimizers.com/biohackingbrittany and use my code biohackingbrittany for 15% off your order. That's bioptimizers.com/biohackingbrittany, because when your gut, hormones, and nervous system are supported, everything else feels easier. Oh, I love this. I need to get one or both
I'll make sure you get them.
ASAP. Looking at those products, I think they're beautiful and they're stunning. I wonder do you ever get people say, like, why can't I just like use a textbook or like a yoga foam block or like a foam roller and just lie on that? Like, would that have the same impact? Or is it like, no, we need something heavy like the wood to really like get in there and develop the heat that we're aiming for?
I love that you asked this question because, of course, we have a free gift for your community, and it's a 9-class series using a rolled up towel. We want it to be dense. So we teach you, you get a bath towel. We show you how to roll it up so it's nice and dense. Anything that's porous, it's going to stay on those surface layers. And again, the roots of the issue are at the bone. So that again is why we use why we use wood. So, and we're not moving on the surface. Think of taking a boat on the ocean compared to deep sea diving. We need to deep sea dive through the layers to get to those deeper adhesions that have locked us in that negative alignment. So I would always recommend using a rolled up towel above anything else if you don't actually use the tools that we have here. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's really, really encouraging. And so just going through your course, like it would specifically go through, I guess, the different parts of the body or even like where to start.
Yeah.
To,
So
like, start
in
to
our
release
starter
tension.
program, we have 9 classes moving sequentially through the body. And it's important because, and I'll do the same thing. Like if my hip's hurting, I want to work on my hip, but there's cause sites to the issue sites, and they're at a distance from where we feel it. So the feet and the hands and the head, these are the furthest from the diaphragm, from your furnace. So this is where the patterning gets locked and anchored in the body. So for example, if you have a frozen shoulder and you get your shoulder worked on and it feels good for the moment, as soon as you start walking, we're going to get pulled into the patterning of the feet, back into that negative alignment that was at least responsible for the issue in the first place, and then just pull you back. So what this does, as opposed to managing your pain, it actually takes you to a level deeper. So there's transformational possibilities. And I mean, if you do the work, they happen because we're literally repatterning your body. Can I just share a couple of things people can do right now to start? Will make all the difference, even if you don't get our tools. Whether people buy stuff or not, I don't care. I just want to make sure people understand their fascia. It's so significant. So working between the toes is like the most important thing to do because furthest from the diaphragm. So how the feet get patterned, if whenever I'm assessing a body, I'll look at the feet. One foot inevitably acts like a flat tire. It starts pulling away from the body. The other side anchors, just like that analogy I was mentioning with the dog. This is the slow moving version of what happens to the body, and it creates twisting up the chain. It creates those adhesions up the chain. In yoga, they say that the toes are the eyes of the feet. And if we're not activating our toes, then we're essentially walking on clubs, and now gravity's taking the wheel. So we want to be the drivers. Again, like if you had a front tire that was flat and you had issues with your car as a result, you get those issues fixed, but you don't pump up the tire, the issues are going to keep coming back. So when you work between the toes, what you want to do, take a finger or a string and like loop it through, and you want to press down and you want to hold for 3 minutes as you focus on the exhale and through the nose. I always say exhale for a count of 6, inhale for 4. When you work between every toe this way, and it's really simple with the rope, and you can watch TV show while you do it, but that helps to release the pattern that the toes are in. And then we always say afterward, if you can stand and just grip the toes for 10 breaths, it's like you're pumping up the toes. You want to have that spring in your step. You want your toes as part of the equation. I actually saw a video probably 6 months ago, and they've shown how longevity and toe strength are directly related because people fall. If you don't have the toes to stabilize you, then we're more susceptible to falls. And if it happens when you're over 60 or 70, I mean, the chance of a fracture of your hip or something, which is going to take you down, is really high. changing that dynamic is one of the most important things you can do. The second is repatterning the hands, because again, now these are the furthest. If you look at most people walking or standing, their palms are facing the back. If you look at a skeleton, anatomical position, which if you've done yoga, you've probably heard this, is palms facing forward. So when our palms even do that, just turn your hands in, it causes the rib cage to become heavy and we slump down. So now that's impacting how you breathe. So to change the dynamic of your hands, simple. We just take between the webbing here, spread nice and far apart, and I would bring them to maybe belly button height so you're not stressing the shoulders, and then push. And again, hold for 3 minutes and you want to feel it. And then you go between the second and third, between the third and the fourth, between the fourth and the fifth. For me, between the third and the fourth, that feels the most intense for me. But when you spend that time, and I'll do it if I'm on a Zoom call, nobody has to know, I'm just down here doing the work. It's amazing the amount of energy that you start moving through the body, especially dealing with trauma, because if we disrupt the energy in the body, but we don't know how to release it effectively, then sometimes we're just feeling like overstimulated, and then we can feel worse as a result of it. And then, can I share one more tip? Okay. I've been doing this now with my community for the last 6 months. I've been doing this every day, and the changes in my face have been remarkable. I never had lips before. When I was a kid, I had like lots of traumas with dentistry and my nose bleeding, and I created like a twist of my face. And so this lip, it didn't have any fullness, no matter how much I work. So I'm gonna share this. I have lots of videos, which I'm happy to direct people to on YouTube. It's called the tongue decompression technique. You're putting your fourth finger inside your mouth, so down, and then we draw the hands away. So it looks funny, but the whole purpose of this is to bring breadth back to the jaw and symmetry, open the lymphatics, open the flow to feed. Unbelievable what my community is sharing about the changes from doing this every single day. You feel the changes in your lower body. We get so stuck in these alignments, and the head being the apex of the body, it's directed by everything else. But when we can release those far points, that's what's going to change your core. People with scoliosis, if we don't address the limbs, you're just going to be running in circles. So those are 3 techniques that people can start with right away. And if you can focus on that exhaling for a longer count than you inhale, now what you're doing is you're ramping up the carbon dioxide in your blood so that the oxygen can jump from the hemoglobin into the cell. It doesn't serve us to have all this oxygen in the body if it doesn't actually get to where we need it to go, which is all of the cells. So this is the work that will start to repattern how you've been aging, bring your body back to balance. So even just starting with that is going to make a big difference for people.
I love that. And I think that's so interesting. It's so funny when you were talking about the toes. I was thinking about like when I used to give myself pedicures and you put those little toe separators in. And I always used to love how it would feel. I'd be like, whoa, but like they're being stretched. And that's like exactly what this is talking about, is like applying pressure to the external parts of our bodies that are like the far out limbs that we kind of forget. Like I don't think about my toes or my fingers or my hands even when I'm like creating my workout body movement practice for the day or for the week. So I'm definitely going to be bringing these practices in, and the mouth one as well, I think is really fascinating. Are these all, I know I think you said they're on YouTube, but are they in the course as well with the towel? Yes. Okay. Okay. And go ahead.
They're in my starter program. I don't actually think they're in the course with the towel, to be honest. So anybody watching here though, they're all over YouTube. I mean, I talk about this stuff all the time just because I want the world to know, like, you can do these things no matter what, and you're going to start to feel improvements.
Yes, I love that. I want to talk about back pain a bit and shoulder pain and rounding. And so I have a little brother, he's like 28, whatever. And he is very much addicted to his phone, and he's very smart. He has a good job, all these things, but he's on his phone so much. And I look at him and it's like this, like it's already like so rounded, and he's 28. I'm like, dude, you gotta like get it together now. So my question to you, with all of your knowledge and expertise, is like, at this age when we are on technology so much, if we don't do anything about it now, where will we be in 10 years and 20 years? And what are the long-term repercussions?
I just got full body chills. I've had this conversation. So I'm 56 now, and it was probably 20 years ago that I really first started seeing the younger generations with technology changing. And so my dad, he loved old movies. And I remember walking into the TV room and there'd be a nice movie on. And no matter the size of the person, the structure was so beautiful. They all had broader shoulders than their waist. They all had a structure that was so appealing to see.
Yeah.
Then you see someone in their 80s. I was born in 69, but so a teenager in their 80s, you see one thing. Now it's a different ball game because now the mothers having the babies grew up in front of technology. Not my generation, but the younger generations, this is happening. So there was already compression. There was already a lack of space in here. And what happens is when we're born, we have our mother's breath. So if you had a mother that was stressed, and this world today is very different, it's a lot more stressed than it was in the past in different ways, but there's a lot of other things to consider. So the babies are coming out with already an impaired breath, not breathing through the belly. And back, 25 years ago, we would always say look at a healthy baby breathing, you see the belly rise and fall. And then over time, we lose that because pain, fear, and stress cause you to reactively hold the breath. But now I'm seeing so many babies who don't have access to the diaphragm from the get-go. We teach mothers how to improve this and create a change, and it's really efficient and really happy to share a video with you if you're interested. But that's the thing. I've said from my perspective, and I've also heard from so many other people, whether we're talking toxins in the world or nutrition, whatever it is, that this is the first time in human history where the younger generation are not going to outlive the older ones. So there's definitely a need for this understanding and to bring these, whatever they are, all the different healing modalities into the world for self-care so people can start taking action now at whatever age you are. Because I can even feel it when I'm working on young people. The tissue feels more spongy. It doesn't have the life force in it like the older people do. And it's because of that lack of breath.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also just, I think it's easier to make, I guess this goes without saying, but it's easier to make the changes when you're younger versus I feel like correcting it decades later. What is that saying? An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure.
Yes.
I really feel like that is the case for this as well. And so I'd love to actually just talk about that in a sense of if I was going to do something for my fascia every single day for the next 20 years, or actually for the rest of my life, I was going to be okay, I'm adding 10 to 15 minutes in my morning routine. What would you have me do?
Breath, toes, and tongue the things that I shared here. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. And you think that is enough to...
It's enough to start you on a different direction, 100%. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then what you'll find over time is, with my whole system, we work full body, and it's a meditation, it's an exercise, and it's a therapy all built into one thing. So when people start this work, oftentimes they're going to the gym, they're doing other things, they're going to other people to have them treat their body when they start this practice, because there's so many benefits. And the first thing for me was my anxiety. My anxiety was over the top. And right away, when I tapped into this breathing, I felt calm for the first time in my life. And by the second day, something that I'd been working so hard on to change my size and shape, this did it. And then my pain within 2 weeks was going away. And it replaces so many things that you might start it for a few minutes to begin with, but as you start feeling the benefits, you're drawn to do more and more and more. I have a community on Facebook, Block Therapy community, with over 20,000 members, and oftentimes they call themselves blockaholics because you start, and the addiction to feeling calm and at peace within, because it's such a foreign feeling for so many, that keeps drawing people back. But then you get all these wonderful side effects as your body starts to change. You have better range of motion, you sleep more deeply, you have better energy, all of it, right? It's all health. But it all comes down to that breath. And when this breath is working properly, which requires the body to be aligned, you don't go through time with the feeling that you are aging. And you also, no matter what age you are, the reversal of time in the body. There's a space-time continuum. As we go through time, we decrease internal space. We become shorter and wider. So this process puts the space back into the body that time has taken away. So to see areas become back alive again that have been lost. Trauma does that. If we've had a horrendous trauma, maybe we were, raped as an example, there's a disassociation with parts of our body because that's how the body is designed to allow it to survive. But if that's our perspective on life, we're only ever in survival mode. We want to thrive. So even if we've had horrendous things happen in our past, we don't have to live the rest of our life with that being the lens that we see life through. We can change everything through getting rid of those adhesions, moving out not only the physical toxins and debris that got trapped, but also the emotions that get trapped in those spaces from the event. And then we can shake it out essentially through the exhale. We can exhale it out of the body effect, and then we can reestablish space. And once we have that, we have our cells communicating with us in the moment. So we're not trapped in what happened and all of the negative things that have accrued in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. I wonder, how would somebody know if they have trauma trapped in their body?
Well, everybody does. And I mean, there's the big T's, like the big traumas that are obvious, but there's also those little T's that are oftentimes even more insidious. It could be the comment from a sibling, oh, I'm smarter than you, or, you're not quite as pretty as me, or you hear like whatever they are, those things, they live in us and they add up to create how we see people see us. So when we can actually change that dialogue, then again, we can change how we view life. We can even change how we view the past traumas. I was a nightmare. I was on in my young years, up until age 17, I was scholar athlete of the year. I was all the things in a private girls' school. And then my life took a very drastic turn at the age of 17, 2 weeks before graduation. I got caught for impaired driving. Now, my parents, you can't imagine the disappointment. My school, they saw me as somebody that was going to keep walking forward from that path. And the disappointment crushed my spirit. And then for the next decade, I was in turmoil, and the behaviors and the actions, they added up. And so by the time I was 30, made major changes in my life. And this was a seed that happened for me in that moment. But it wasn't until I was 37 years old when I could actually look back at that younger version of myself that I used to be so ashamed of. And I literally just loathed. And then I recognized that that was the girl, though, that brought this information forward. And now I'm helping the masses because of that version of myself. So I remember when I was able to finally feel that love toward the younger version of myself that was so lost. Because I mean, it was horrible. And I don't think I'd be alive today if this didn't happen to me. And it's my purpose and mission to make sure everybody that wants this information knows that you can do it for yourself. And not only are you changing how you look, how you feel, how you function, but you're truly changing how you perceive life. And as we start to connect to those deeper selves than what we've been consciously aware of, God starts speaking to us in a whole different way. I love Greg Braden's book, The God Code. He shares in it, he goes into the detail. I'm not good with detail, but he shares that on the surface layer of every cell is the message God lies within. So if we're only connecting or feeding 10 or 20% of those cells, that's all we're hearing. And we have so much more in us to live and to share in this world, but we need to tap in and really open up those spaces that have been blocked. And when we do, everything changes.
That's so beautiful. I love that. And it gives me a lot to think about. And I do think there is the big T and the little t trauma, and we're all kind of dealing with it in different ways. And I will say that the more breath work and meditation you do, the easier it is to actually recognize the trauma and what has happened to you and how it might be impacting you, because you're creating space in your day for reflection and quiet. Like, that's what I found in my own life is like, oh, I'm connecting the dots in my head of, oh, this and this happened. Oh, this is what this might mean. Whereas when you're go, and you don't take that time for the breath or the meditation, you're not making time enough to actually do the very, very deep, hard work to heal that is actually really necessary.
Love directing people to a video on YouTube called The Life of a Cell by David Belinsky. It's about 3 minutes. And when you see the universe of activity that happens in one cell, it brings me to tears because we have trillions of these things working on our behalf to allow us to thrive, but we don't even think about them. We don't pay attention to them. And if we're squishing them, and we're not feeding them, and we're not giving them the hydration and the room that they need to do their job, then we as a body, we struggle. And so the cells, I mean, when we feel pain, when we feel feelings of anxiousness or whatever the negative sensation is, that's just your cell giving you information that, hey, mom or dad, I need more space. I need more room to do my job for you. But we don't pay attention, and then we hate our bodies for it. We're angry that we can't do what we want to do, or we angry that these pants are too tight now and we feel bloated all the time. So we start beating our body up, but it's like we're punching the cell that's working so hard to allow us to thrive, and it's getting punched. So the mindset is so key as well in how we think about ourselves. And I love Greg Braden's work because he's brought so much science to the spirituality. But he shared in one of his books as well that the frequency of love looks like a fast frequency, like a snake. The frequency of fear is a slow, drawn out frequency. The frequency of our DNA equals the frequency of love. So if we're passing loving thoughts, whether about ourselves, the world, anyone else, we're basically putting that frequency through our being, and we're turning on the codons of the DNA. When we pass negative thinking through our body, then we are turning off those codons and we're essentially shutting ourselves down. That in itself is why we really need to hear those thoughts that are habitually processing through our minds, because they do add up and they create changes in our physical structure as well.
I'm going to look up some of these videos. Like, I'm so curious. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, I got to write this down because I want to know it. And I'll link everything in the show notes. This has been incredible talking to you, and I feel very inspired. If people want to work with you, try your blocks, or do any of your courses, watch your YouTube videos, where can they go?
So my website is blocktherapy.com. We do have a gift for your audience, though, which is a free 9-part series using the rolled up towel. So people can take the link, they can dive in right away so you can feel it without having an investment. Very much about, I don't want people purchasing something if these are going to, sit as beautiful furniture. I want people to really understand, and you get a really good feel of this practice with that rolled up towel. And the 9 classes, they do take you through the body. You'll learn to breathe, you'll release those adhesions, and you'll even learn some of those postural aspects that are key to making sure we don't keep falling into those negative alignments.
Amazing. I'm going to take that class. I want to know.
Well, I'm going to send you these, Brittany, so that you can actually have the real deal.
Okay, I'll do the blocks with the classes because I think I need this, especially with C-section healing like you talked about. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was amazing. And I'm just so excited to dive into this and everything that you shared. And its relation to longevity as well is incredible.
Thank you, Brittany. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to chatting again.
Thank you for listening to Biohacking with Brittany. I hope today's conversation gave you something to take into your own life, a practice, a perspective, or simply a reminder to trust your body. If you love this episode, please leave a review, share it with someone else who could benefit, and join me over on Instagram at biohackingbrittany for more. And if you're ready to go deeper, you can explore my retreats, community, favorite tools, all linked for you in the show notes. Until next time, remember, your body already knows.